Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Brody and today I am going to be ranking all 110 episodes of Community from worst to best. Like many people, I discovered Community in 2020 during the COVID-19 lockdown periods when it came to Netflix. And it was just one of the best things to happen. It is undoubtedly one of my favorite shows of all time. I've seen it countless times now, and I think fans of the show will agree there's just really something special about Community. Now, before we get into the countdown, today's episode is sponsored by no one, since I am still a brand new channel and ultimately I'm just doing this for a bit of fun. But if you wanted to buy me a brand new Tesla or a can of Pepsi, you can make a donation straight to my PayPal using the link in the description below. Let's get into it. Number 110, Heroic Origins. This may be the one and only episode that I actually, literally hate. The next few on the list aren't great, but they at least have one good moment in them. Not this one. I hate what they did in this episode. Abed has a mega autism moment as he tracks everyone's backstory and origin of meeting each other and ending up at Greendale. The reason I hate this so much is because it completely ruins the perfectly good origin story that is the pilot episode. Troy and Annie knew each other from back in high school. That's fine. Jeff and Shirley get an origin story in the foosball episode, which I'm not really that much of a fan of, but okay, I can accept it. But you're seriously telling me Jeff and Britta have interacted this many times, face to face, and they didn't recognize each other in our pilot episode? Get out of here. Man, stuff this episode. Moving on. Number 109, The Art of Discourse. Jeff and Britta make enemies of these annoying teenagers. And when I say annoying, I mean really, really annoying. I hate these kids. I hate this storyline. It has absolutely no redeeming qualities and makes for one of the worst episodes in the series. The episode has one great moment as Pierce pulls down Shirley's pants in an attempt to be funny. Number 108, VCR Maintenance and Educational Publishing. It's crazy that this episode ranks so low when it has one of the show's great scenes. That of course being the Dean's infamous rap while dressed as a literal nut. But apart from that, Jeff, Shirley and Mike Ehrmantraut stumble upon a pile of brand new chemistry textbooks and try to make some money selling them black market style. It's an okay storyline, but nothing special. Meanwhile, Annie and Abed play this weird DVD game with Captain Marvel and Annie's brother in an attempt to pick a new housemate to replace Troy. I absolutely hate this storyline. They completely waste the opportunity to do something good with Abed's relationship here with the girl that he actually has really great chemistry with. I can't believe they stuffed up this badly. Also, Annie's brother may just be the most boring and forgettable character in television history. The one saving grace here is Vince Gilligan's cameo, especially the post-credits scene, which is genuinely hilarious. Number 107. Conventions of Space and Time. Abed and the group attend a Doctor Who ripoff convention and were introduced to Toby, Abed's pen pal and one of the worst characters in the series. Seriously, I hate this guy and this entire storyline. Troy and Abed's friendship is not so fragile that this wanker could ever get between it, which kind of makes the moral of the story, Troy will find me, feel undeserved and unnecessary. This episode is somewhat saved by Jeff and Annie's antics at least. Bow down to Thraxis. Number 106. Alternative History of the German Invasion. The German group from the foosball episode are back again to be super annoying. Seriously, I hate these guys. The montage of our group failing again and again to book their study room in time is hilarious though. Their little trick to get the Germans in trouble is okay, but I really like the protest that results as the rest of the school uprises against our study group. The different perspectives we get to see during some flashbacks to past great episodes is really well done. They lost a pen. Also, we get the introduction of the Changnesia storyline, which, let's face it, kinda sucks. Number 105. Basic Genealogy. Jeff hits on Pierce's stepdaughter, who is a terrible person, also proving that Jeff can be a terrible person. And Britta tries to suck up to Troy's nana, who is a terrible person, proving that she needs to sometimes get off of her high horse. This is a very forgettable episode. But this Pierce moment is fantastic. Number 104. Advanced Documentary Filmmaking. Abed is given the task of making a documentary on Changnesia to get the school $40,000. This has to be one of the worst ongoing storylines in the series, but there are a few good moments still. Jeff's resistance to giving in to the nonsense, only for him to pretend to be on board and go rogue and get excluded, is great. And the look at becoming an outcast and wanting a second chance is nice. I quite like the scene with Kevin/Chang with Jeff at the end. Number 103. Cooperative escapism in familial relations. Shirley invites the group to her family Thanksgiving, which everyone hates and tries to escape. There's a nice little Shawshank homage done throughout. It's not the best storyline though. The big part of the episode is Jeff finally reuniting with his father, with Britta gatecrashing to offer support. I have mixed feelings on how they handle this. I'll start with the negatives. Adam Devine's character is so bloody annoying and unnecessary, completely ruins what should be a serious moment. Jeff's interactions with his father are for the most part done quite well. I'm glad they gave Jeff the opportunity to stick it to his dad. The ending with Jeff preparing a Thanksgiving lunch for the group is very nice. Number 102. Applied Anthropology and Culinary Arts. Shirley has a baby. Oh, of course, there's a lot of drama building up to that. The dean interrupts the class with a reporter from Dean magazine, which is absolutely gold, and I love that little spoof at the end. Anyway, this forces Duncan to attempt to deliver an actual proper lesson, so Shirley's baby saves him there. We also get a race kerfuffle outside, which is great. Chang, Britta, and Abed all have some nice little moments here and there to help Shirley out. But it is the Dean who is the MVP of this one for me. Number 101. Virtual Systems Analysis. Annie tries to play matchmaker with Troy and Britta, and she and Abed go into the Dreamatorium. The writers really tried to force Annie and Abed duo, but I don't think it ever really works. They just don't have that much chemistry between them without Troy. The Dreamatorium stuff has some nice moments though, where characters expose their insecurities and anxieties. The Dean has a couple of terrific scenes in this episode. I have to go to the bank today. Number 100. Accounting for Lawyers. Jeff runs into his old lawyer friend Alan and gets invited to a shindig with his old workplace. Annie realizes Alan is the one who ratted Jeff out and tries to convince him to cut ties with him and that way of life. It's an interesting look into Jeff's character as he struggles to put his old lawyer life behind him and accept the new person Greendale has made him. But it doesn't make for the most exciting episode. Though we do get this great scene with Annie chloroforming the janitor a couple of times. Oh, and Chang solo dances for a really long time to try and get accepted into the group, but ends up failing anyway. Jeff has a pretty epic dance. Number 99. The Psychology of Letting Go. Troy discovers the corpse of Pierce's dead mother, who had been there for quite some time. We then learn about the crazy cult thinger Pierce and his family are a part of. Jeff has a checkup and finds out he's in near perfect health, except his cholesterol is a little high and life is unfair and he's going to die. So yeah, Jeff gets very upset that he's wasted years of his life doing everything that he can be to be perfectly healthy and struggles to accept the idea that he's still mortal. He takes his frustrations out on Pierce and his beliefs and sets out on a mission to show Pierce his dead mother's corpse. Before they can get there though, Pierce discovers a CD recording from his mum explaining the full truth, though he still lives in denial. Thankfully, the message resonates with Jeff at least. Meanwhile, Britta and Annie have a competition over who cares about social justice more, which turns into some personal attacks and some oil-covered wrestling. Nice. Also, we get one of the show's greatest Easter eggs, as Abed can be seen in the background being involved with this couple, ultimately helping to deliver their baby. That's fun. This episode explores some pretty deep themes, including personal beliefs, morality, mortality, death, grieving, and it manages to do it with a good amount of humor. Good old Community. Number 98, Repilot. We catch up with the characters again after they've all had some time in the real world, only to find out they're all failing and miserable. Jeff returns to his old law firm and has to work against Greendale. He convinces the others to turn against Greendale, but then has a change of heart and ends up accepting a job there and forming the Save Greendale Committee. Aww. I get the writers had to find a way to get all the characters back on campus, but I really just don't like this episode too much. Everyone is really unlikable for the most part, but I am glad Community continued with Dan Harmon back and Season 5 ended up improving big time. Number 97, Foosball and Nocturnal Vigilantism. Jeff and Shirley fight and bond over foosball because annoying German guys are annoying. Seriously, they're so annoying. And I don't care if that's the point. They're annoying. Anyway, getting to see another side of Shirley here is nice. Though I'm personally not really a fan of her and Jeff's backstory from their childhood. Oh well. Meanwhile, Troy and Annie have a storyline about replacing Abed's broken Batman DVD, which is not that great. Apart from, of course, getting to see Abed as Batman again. Number 96, G.I. Jeff. Jeff accidentally hospitalizes himself because he turns 40, and has some sort of meta cartoon commercial coma experience. I've never seen G.I. Joe, but I think I kinda get the idea. I really hated this one on first time I watched it, but it has grown on me with time. I do give the showrunners credit for their creativity. The meta humor is generally pretty good, and the ending is kinda sweet. Number 95, Intro to Felt Surrogacy. The group are awkward around each other after they have a strange outdoor experience. I know a lot of people hate this one, and maybe even have it in last place, but I really don't think it's that bad. The songs are fun and catchy, the puppets are well made and provide some classic creepy Dean comedy. I like that the writers give our characters actual horrible experiences to be ashamed of, and Jeff insisting everyone has to share their secret to restore order and help save Shirley is a nice moment from him. Number 94, Basic Human Anatomy. The group work on their final diorama and Shirley and Annie compete for valedictorian, much to Annie's surprise. Troy and Albert have a Freaky Friday body swap because Troy doesn't know how to break up with Britta. I have to give credit to Daniel and Danny here for their performances acting as each other. They do a brilliant job. I also love the interactions between Jeff and the Dean throughout. The Dean is terrific in this one. I will say I never really shipped Troy and Britta anyway, so their breakup doesn't have the emotion it tries to get, at least not for me. Number 93, custody law, and Eastern European diplomacy. Shirley has a baby shower and Chang is disappointed to discover that he won't be involved in the baby's life, even if it is his. Britta falls for Troy and Abed's friend against their wishes, only for her to discover that he's a war criminal. That whole story is alright, but nothing special. The highlight of the episode is definitely Chang kidnapping two random black kids thinking they're Shirley's, leaving Jeff to deal with the aftermath. We also get Andre being a very decent human being here, saving Chang. Andre is honestly a great character. He may have a dark history off screen, but presents himself as a decent and morally strong man, hell-bent on redemption. Number 92. Early 21st century romanticism. Jeff has a fight with the rest of the group and ends up hosting Duncan at his place to watch soccer. Yeah, I said soccer. Fight me. Chang invites himself, and literally everyone else, as he tries to weasel his way into living there. The various Chang takeovers at Jeff's place are hilarious. Meanwhile, Britta makes a lesbian friend who isn't actually a lesbian, but they dance and kiss anyway. They're both the worst. But also, nice. Troy and Abed do a weird 3-person date with a librarian so she can choose which one she likes more. The three of them miss the obvious solution. Troy's reaction to her being picked over Abed is adorable and funny. Number 91. Home economics. Troy gets relationship advice from Annie. Annie gets jealous. Britta and Vaughn are awkward after their breakup, so Pierce tries to deal with Vaughn, but ends up as the pianist in his band, which is great. Jeff gets busted as living out of his car, and ends up moving in with Abed and getting too comfortable and letting himself go. Then he sorts himself out with some help from Britta. Nothing in this episode is particularly great, but it still manages to be solid. Number 90. History of Dance. The dean organizes a dance as a distraction while the school's water fountains are taken away. Britta gets offended that it's a girls ask guy type of dance and decides to organize her own, but mistakenly says Sophie B. Hawkins instead of Susan B. Anthony. I had to Google who both of those were. She gets stubborn when the group correct her and make fun of her, and she decides to persist with her plan to host a Sophie B. Hawkins dance at the same time, in the same place, because venues are hard to book around here. Annie and Shirley are both super bitchy and unlikable in this episode, as they each try to set up Abed with a date. He does a double date trope, which is kind of just frustrating to watch, but ends up having some really nice moments, as he has chemistry with Captain Marvel. I do love Pierce's role in this episode, as he helps Britta out and gives Jeff some actual good advice, and Jeff reflecting on that and taking it in is a nice moment. Number 89. Economics of Marine Biology. The dean asks for help in flattering this rich douchebag to enroll at Greendale. I hate this storyline. It's truly awful. Though I do really enjoy Jeff and Pierce bonding, then fighting, then bonding again. Good stuff. Thankfully, this episode is saved by Shirley and Troy, who take physical education. I actually am a PE teacher, so this storyline is extra fantastic for me. Seriously, every scene here is great. Number 88. Urban Matrimony and the Sandwich Arts. Pierce and Shirley agreed to become business partners, and Andre proposes to Shirley. Yep, it's been a busy day for Shirley. The group help prepare for the rehearsal, which will be in the study room, because of course it will be. Troy and Abed attempt to act normal, which is pretty funny, while Britta struggles to accept that she's good at planning weddings, and Jeff struggles to accept the concept of love because of his own trauma. Shirley and Andre argue because of her investment in her new shop and the difference in their dynamic, but they manage to make up pretty quickly and then get married on the spot. Also, the dean sells the sandwich shop to Subway instead. Dog act. Number 87. Comparative religion. Shirley tries to make the perfect Christmas party because she's the perfect Christian woman, but she struggles to accept the variety of beliefs within the group. Jeff makes an enemy of Mustache Jim Man and ends up scheduling a fight. Shirley gives him an ultimatum, but Jeff fights anyway. Honestly, this guy and his cronies are just so annoying, and I get that's the point, but that doesn't really make them good, does it? Anyway, the end fight scene is actually pretty good, as the study group jumps in to back Jeff up. The episode has a nice message. You cannot control others, but you can always be there for them. Number 86. Investigative journalism. Jack Black attempts to join the study group. The group are against it for most of the episode. Then they come around and accept him, only for him to ditch them for his first preference. I love Jack Black. In fact, School of Rock is my favourite movie of all time, but he doesn't really do it for me in this episode. Still, I like the final act twist, as it is one of the few times our study group is truly humbled. Also, Jeff and Annie and the Dean have this strange subplot about the school newspaper and a possible racism scandal or something. Not super memorable. Number 85. Basic email security. A hacker threatens to leak everyone's emails if they don't cancel some controversial comedian's show. It makes for an interesting philosophical debate about free speech versus hate speech, and presents an interesting Black Mirror-esque scenario about the social impacts of our online conversations becoming public. Pretty funny how it's about emails though. How old is this show? Number 84. Asian Population Studies. The group finds out that Annie is romantically interested in Rich, and Troy spills the beans to Pierce that Shirley and Chang had sex and may have gotten her pregnant. The group hosts a mixer to decide who they want to vote in to join their study group. It's a mixer, it's a mixer, it's a mixer. Works every time. Troy's horrible and awkward interrogation of Andre is hilarious, and Jeff's jealousy over Rich is a great ongoing plotline. I love the misdirect that they give us, and as we assume that Jeff is running to profess his love to Annie, only for it to be Rich to open the door. Also, Rich getting involved in Troy and Abed in the morning is fantastic. Number 83. Anthropology 101. The group return to school and deal with the aftermath of Britta's declaration of love to Jeff at the end of the last season. To her, and to our surprise, she has become an idol to everyone for her bravery, while Jeff is despised for being a coward and leaving her hanging. Then they play a game of chicken in which they try and outdo each other to display their public love, hoping the other one will crack. It's good fun. Also, Betty White here is terrific as the deranged anthropology teacher. Number 82. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. The group decide to meddle in the personal life of Mike Ermintrout by organizing a game of Dungeons and Dragons with him and his son. This episode had big shoes to fill after the original D&D episode, and honestly, it did okay. It's not an amazing episode, but there are enough good moments to get it a passing grade. I do like that they steered away from a sloppy happy ending and instead found a nice grey area for the conclusion. Number 81. Intro to Recycled Cinema. Chang randomly becomes a big-time celebrity because of his ham girl catchphrase. This leads the Greendale group to try and make a profit by using some footage Abad has of Chang into a movie. I love the creative use of the small amount of Chang they have, and all the over-the-top special effects. Also, Garrett is great in this one. In the end, Chang insults Steven Spielberg and comes back to Greendale with his tail in between his legs. Number 80. Bondage and better male sexuality. Britta catches up with some old friends, and they all judge each other for what they used to be and where they are now. Duncan tries to chat Britta up with Jeff's permission, but Jeff has a rekindled attraction to Britta upon seeing her being popular. Britta ends up feeling very sad about where she is compared to her old friends and agrees to go home with Duncan. Duncan gains a conscience upon being reminded that he and Jeff have known each other for the longest time, but they don't act like friends. The whole storyline is okay, nothing too special. Mike Ehrmantraut handcuffs Abed to the filing cabinet after he destroys his duck drawings, and the two argue for a while. This is probably Abed at his most unlikable. He's clearly in the wrong here. I absolutely love Chang's little side story though, as he becomes convinced he is either seeing a ghost or is a ghost himself. The last scene of him in the old-timey photo is a classic screw the audience joke. Number 79. Romantic Expressionism. Annie and Vaughn become a thing with Britta's approval, despite her not actually liking it. Season 1 relationships aren't the most exciting. Troy and Abed have Shirley and Chang over for a movie night, and Pierce struggles to fit in with the others. This leads to the highlight of the episode, with Pierce hiring some people to help him write funny jokes. He likes gay jokes. Number 78. Interpretive Dance. Jeff and Professor Slater get busted by the study group, and their relationship becomes public after Pierce tweets it. This scene with the dean interrogating both is pretty great, but the overall labels argument they have is kind of boring. Meanwhile, Troy and Britta discover they are both taking dance classes and are too embarrassed to tell anybody else. When they finally agree to let the group know, Britta is ridiculed and Troy leaves her hanging. Dog act, Troy. He does get some redemption though, as he steps in to help Britta after she freezes upon seeing Jeff and Professor Slater together. Well done, Troy. Number 77. Environmental Science. The dean announces that the school will have their annual Environmental Week, and will rebrand as Enviradale, which is just gold. Chang is having relationship troubles and takes it out on his Spanish class by giving assignment after assignment out. Jeff somewhat befriends Chang to get himself out of having to do the work, much to the anger of the rest of the study group. Meanwhile, Troy and Abed have a very forgettable story about a rat, and Pierce teaches Shirley how to do well with public speaking. It's an okay episode, nothing too special. Number 76. Spanish 101. Britta remains skeptical of Jeff and his charm, but he manages to seduce the other members who are already looking to him as their leader. Annie and Shirley are inspired to take up activism by Britta, much to her dismay, as she wants to feel special and superior to everyone else, but she has some self-reflection and growth. Jeff joining Pierce for their crazy presentation is hilarious. The writers are still finding their feet here, and the group dynamics take some time to fully form, but it's another good episode for such early days. Number 75. Basic Story. Abed has an existential meta breakdown about whether there is or isn't a story, or something like that. The Save Greendale committee prepare to have the school appraised, and when they find out that the school has value, their excitement is short-lived as it is revealed the school will now be sold to Subway. Jeff and Britta freak out and decide to get married, but before they can do it, on the new table they get interrupted by news of buried treasure. Also, the dean saying, "Oh, it means literally," cracks me up every time. Number 74. Basic Sandwich. The group are in a race against time to stop Subway purchasing the school. They are on the hunt for Community's founder, Russell Borchett, and eventually manage to find him down a trapdoor, where he has somehow been living there with his weird computer thing for an ungodly amount of time. He finds a document that Jeff can use to stop the sow, but unfortunately for them, Carl and Richie followed them in and use a magnet to damage the computer thingy and trap them inside. Jeff uses the power of love and friendship to save the day, which is equal parts cute and cringe. Number 73. Competitive wine tasting. Jeff and Pierce enroll in a wine tasting class and flirt with an attractive Asian lady. To Jeff's surprise, his advances are not well met, and she ends up going for Pierce, and the two get engaged in about 3 seconds. This of course is a huge ego hit to Jeff, who then makes it his mission to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, Troy and Britta share painful experiences in their drama class. Troy struggles to fit in as he has no real trauma to share, so he interrupts Vicky with a made-up lie about his uncle touching his no-no. His vulnerability triggers an attraction from Britta and sympathy from his fellow classmates. He eventually comes clean about lying, and Professor Garrity delivers a great line: "The pain of having no pain." Jeff eventually uncovers the truth about Pierce's fiancée being from a rival moist towelette company, and ruins their engagement. Pierce is angry at Jeff and delivers the surprising line, "People use each other. Doesn't mean there aren't feelings along the way," which is simultaneously wise and ridiculous. I like the look we get at Pierce and Jeff in this episode. Jeff acts under the disguise of wanting to help Pierce when really he is acting out of his own insecurities, while Pierce shows again he'll do anything for affection, including jeopardizing his own business. We get a nice conclusion with Jeff bringing the two together for a real date. Abed has his own little adventure, schooling the professor in the Who's the Boss class, which is pretty great. Number 72. Introduction to Teaching. Jeff begins his career as a teacher at Greendale and is surprised to find out that he cannot get away with being an obnoxious douche anymore. He becomes good friends with Mike Ermentrout and discovers that all of the other teachers also hate their jobs, don't do them very well, and drink a lot of alcohol. Also, the staff lounge has a no dean policy. I do like the chaos that ensues when Annie finds out minuses are made up. Meanwhile, Abed becomes obsessed over Nicolas Cage in this new class, which gives us one of the best scenes in the series. Number 71. Communication Studies. Britta drunk dials Jeff, which ruins the dynamic of their relationship. Abed convinces Jeff to do the same to restore balance, so the two of them get drunk together, which is all very funny. Meanwhile, Pierce and Troy cop the consequences for Annie and Shirley's prank on Chang, and are forced to go to the dance with Chang in some rather interesting clothes. The fact that Chang later comes out as gay certainly makes this whole ordeal more interesting. I do like the resolution to the little love triangle as Britta helps save Jeff's relationship. At least, for now. Number 70. Competitive Ecology. The group are forced to work with random students for their biology assignment, but manage to convince their teacher to let them partner among themselves. Pierce is left out, so Todd gets dragged into the mix. The group then come to realize they all hate working with the partner they have, and everyone tries to shuffle things around to best suit them, insulting Todd multiple times along the way. None taken. Todd is such a great character, and this is another of his good episodes. I love that he eventually snaps at the group after lighting the poor little turtle on fire. We also see Chang get promoted to head of security. What? Here? Oh my god, what is this? What's going on? Number 69. Basic Crisis Room Decorum. The group have an emergency meeting to discuss the new city college ad attacking Greendale, where it is revealed that they gave a degree to a dog. This storyline is fine, nothing too amazing. Actually, to be honest, I don't even see what the big deal is. Like, what would be such a big deal if a college did give a degree to a dog? It's obviously not real, and it's just a pretty cute thing to do. Maybe that's just me. I love dogs. Anyway, This episode gets a huge boost from the Dean texting Jeff storyline. This is right up there with the funniest thing in the entire show. I had tears of laughter the first time I saw it. The Dean's ignorance, the jars of olives, the Asian boys loving their own work, it is just terrific. Also, this post-credits scene is wild, yo. Number 68. Intro to Knots. The group meet at Jeff's place for a Christmas party, and Annie invites Professor Cornwallis in an attempt to woo him into increasing their grade, though she is deceitful in what the original grade is. Somehow, Professor Cornwallis ends up tied to a chair, or so we think, and some fun negotiations take place. It's a fun episode, and the conclusion is really nice. And the post-credits scene has a fun little darkest timeline piece, setting up things to come. Number 67. Grifting 101. Matt Berry guest stars as the teacher of Grifting 101. I wasn't a huge fan of this one on first watch, but it's definitely grown on me over time. They managed to balance the insulting of these types of movies with decent twist of their own, blended nicely together with Community's famous self-awareness. It's a fun episode. Number 66. Abed's Uncontrollable Christmas. Perhaps controversial, but I hated this episode when I first watched it. Something about the sudden change in animation really annoyed me. It has, however, grown on me with time, and I can now see its charm. There's a bunch of funny lines as Abed bends reality to cope with the Christmas traditions changing. The support he receives from the group is really nice, and I love the final moment where we can see the group in real life in the TV reflection. Number 65. Laws of Robotics and Party Rights. Greendale are offered a bunch of money to have prisoners go to school there via iPads on wheels. What a quirky concept. We only really get to know one prisoner, Willie, a well-spoken but intriguing man who wins the affection of the Dean and becomes Jeff's enemy, even trying to murder him by pushing him down the stairs. Jeff loses his mind, which is good fun, and eventually it is revealed that Willie is actually an innocent man anyway, not a murderer. I absolutely love to see Gareth Alpha Jeff around. What an interesting dynamic. The program is eventually stopped, and Abed takes over the iPads, which now belong to Greendale. Oh, and Annie and Britta and Abed have a pretty forgettable storyline about hosting a party and filming it. It's all pretty meh. Number 64. Course listing unavailable. Britta encourages everyone to appropriately mourn the death of Starburns, while Jeff attempts to get everyone to move on and forget about it. Jeff then has an emotional breakdown when the Dean tells the group their biology grade is invalid and they'll need to make up the credit over the summer. This triggers a chain of events of students hating on the school and starting a riot. Chang uses the opportunity to get increased powers of his army of kids. Then he kidnaps the Dean and replaces him with a lookalike, and gets the study group expelled. What the hell? Number 63. Paranormal Parentage. We get the introduction of the Save Greendale Committee, and some members get to work organising the school dance. Chang guilts the group to go with the theme, Bear Down for Midterms, which later backfires somewhat. Meanwhile, Annie and Mike go around in circles making promises to eventually get a bulletin board put up, which is quite an entertaining storyline somehow. We also get Abed and Britta having a little back and forth spoilers war for their version of Game of Thrones. Abed has another strange romance with a random deaf girl, and it's really cute, but she ends up being a total and so does Britta. Poor Abed. This is probably the worst thing Britta does in the entire show, to be honest. Number 62. Critical Film Studies. I have seen Pulp Fiction. I have never seen My Dinner with Andre. I have never seen Cougar Town. But this episode is great regardless. First of all, how bloody good do these guys look in their Pulp Fiction gear? Especially Shirley L. Jackson. Terrific. Also, this idea from Jeff is really sweet and clearly took a lot of effort. I remember being so confused the first time I watched this. Did Abed actually do all of these things? Is it a bit? It should have been pretty obvious it was a bit, but hey. It's an entertaining ride and adds an interesting dynamic to the underrated Jeff-Abed relationship. Number 61. Football, Feminism, and You. Pierce gets involved helping to create Greendale's new mascot. For some reason, this has to be something with no obvious race or gender, or really anything. The Dean then uses Jeff's image to blackmail him into convincing Troy to join the football team, which leads to one of the show's most famous exchanges. Seriously, I saw this hundreds of times all over the internet before I even saw Community. Meanwhile, Britta has a story about learning to be a girly girl, the most important part being knowing how to go to the bathroom with other girls and not be a bitch. I do enjoy this storyline, partly because as a guy, we do find it funny how just kind of foreign the way girls always go to the bathroom together is. We much prefer to go alone. But also because this does really show an interesting side to Britta's character. She never learned to fit in with other girls, and she was probably a bit of an outcast during high school. Seeing her bond with Annie and Shirley here is really nice. Number 60. Intermediate documentary filmmaking. Pierce pretends to be dying to mess with the group. He asks Abed to film the process. Pierce bequeaths gifts to the group one by one, each one designed to inflict some sort of psychological warfare on them. The biggest one being Jeff with the promise of reuniting him with his father. It's fun watching each of them do mental gymnastics throughout the episode, and Pierce pretending to be Jeff's dad in the car only for Jeff to chase him down and drag him out of the car is terrific. Number 59. Aerodynamics of Gender. Abed joins the girls in women's studies class and becomes an insult machine, helping the girls take on Lizzie McGuire in a battle of the bitches. The Terminator style in which Abed views the world is great, but the overall story is pretty mid. Meanwhile, we get this excellent storyline of Pierce trying to fit in with Jeff and Troy, only to be continuously left out. Jeff and Troy stumble upon his secret trampoline gate-kept by seemingly friendly gardener Josh. I absolutely love these trampoline scenes and the effect they have on Jeff and Troy. The contentment and positivity, however short-lived, is a really nice change of pace. I have mixed feelings about the twist, revealing that Josh was a racist the whole time, and they simply missed all the signs. It's going to be a maze. It's kind of funny, but honestly, I wish they went with something a little bit different. Jeff and Troy were just so damn sweet and likable on that trampoline. Number 58. Epidemiology. A Halloween party turns into a zombie movie because the Dean fed everyone bad military food. Yeah. The costumes and sound effects are great in this episode, and I love Rich in this one. Blurred speech! Ah! It's a good episode, but as far as the school-wide chaos episode goes, it's just good. Number 57. The Politics of Human Sexuality. Greendale hosts an STD fair. Annie is pressured to give a live demonstration on putting a condom on a plastic penis, but as she has no experience, she gets Shirley and Britta to help her out. Meanwhile, Pierce has a date with a hooker and pressures Jeff into picking up some random girl. Much to Jeff's surprise, he ends up infatuated with the hooker and questions his life decisions. Troy and Abed have a bunch of athletic competitions, and Abed somehow wins them all, which I just don't think is realistic, but it's pretty fun. We get a couple of great Dean moments in this episode too. Who knew alcohol made people horny? Makes me sleepy. And Abed's, if you're going to have sex tonight, don't use condoms. Number 56. Introduction to Statistics. 2 Halloween parties occur at once, and Jeff ends up caught between them. He's desperately trying to hook up with Professor Slater, but his friends constantly need him. Shirley is upset about her failed marriage and tries to take out her frustrations on Slater, under the pretense of supporting Britta. This episode is a little corny, but Jeff ultimately choosing his newfound friendship group over banging Slater is kinda nice. We also get this incredible sequence of Abed being Batman, which is an all-time classic. Number 55. Basic RV repair and palmistry. The group go on a road trip in Elroy's RV with a giant hand after the Dean orders it for some reason. They then run out of petrol and electricity because they've all been charging their phones. There's a whole bunch of fighting and then some making up. It's all reasonably funny. Abed is attempting to change the future by cutting back to the past where he's being super meta. The Dean is probably at his most unlikable in this episode, though he's still bloody hilarious. The episode gets a big boost from one of the best post-credit scenes in the series. Number 54. English as a second language. Annie's recording device captures Chang confessing that he's not a qualified teacher, which results in them getting a new Spanish teacher and actually having to study, and in Chang destroying Jeff's car. Poor Jeff. The group then turn on Annie once they discover it was her plan to keep the group together. They cram for the final and they all pass, but it is later revealed that Pierce slept with the new Spanish teacher so that she'd make it easier for them. Sweet, but also gross. The real highlight of this episode though is the beginning of the plumbing/air conditioner storyline for Troy. We get this great Good Will Hunting spoof and the introduction of Mr. Plumber Man. I'm just going to keep saying it over and over, I absolutely love this storyline. It's so nonsensical and ridiculous and funny. Vintage Community. Number 53. Paranormal Parentage. The group reluctantly go to Pierce's house to help him out on Halloween. It's pretty cool getting to see Pierce's house. We get some classic scary movie tropes and some great one-liners. Pierce's dad does some haunting and there's a mystery that even scares Pierce. In the end, it was just Gus Fring feeling lonely. After being hounded by Britta all episode, Jeff calls his dad, which is a pretty big moment for his character. Number 52. Advanced Criminal Law. Britta confesses to cheating on a Spanish test and has to attend Greendale Court, which is an expensive table by the swimming pool. Also, are you seriously telling me Greendale has this awesome aquatic facility and it just never comes up again? What a waste of an awesome facility. Anyway, Jeff puts his lawyer hat on and gives a couple of speeches to get Britta off, though she now has to spend some time with Duncan every week. Meanwhile, Abed struggles to understand joking around with Troy, and Annie and Pierce work on creating a song, both of which have some pretty good moments. Number 51. Studies in Modern Movement. Annie moves into Troy and Abed's place. Troy and Abed are ridiculously annoying this episode, and Annie, understandably, has a little mental breakdown after attempting to be a loosey-goosey all day. Britta, Shirley, and Jesus Christ discuss morality, marijuana, and racism, and Pierce gets high and almost dies on fumes. Honestly, all that stuff is pretty mid, but the episode is significantly strengthened by the Dean and Jeff story. The Dean blackmailing Jeff to essentially have a date with him is full of great moments. Number 50. Geography of Global Conflict. Annie discovers Asian Annie, or Annie Kim, and the two quickly become rivals. This leads to them battling it out in a Model UN run by the hilarious Professor Cligoris? There are a lot of great moments in this debate, and I absolutely love the conclusion that we get with Abed's earlier question about parallel universes coming back to save the day. The science checks out. Mr. Cligoris is fantastic. Meanwhile, Britta and Chang have a weird B story that I don't really care for. Number 49. Paradigms of Human Memory. One of the more unique episodes in the series, this one sees the group argue in the study room, which leads to multiple flashbacks and cutscenes of other arguments and shenanigans that the group has gone up to over the years. Dan Harmon uses this format later in Rick and Morty, showing the audience that the main characters are constantly going on crazy adventures even when we the audience aren't watching. It's a fun episode which makes fun of itself and has some great quirky moments throughout. Number 48. Celebrity Pharmacology. Annie gets the group to put on a play for middle schoolers on the dangers of drugs. Pierce bribes/blackmails Annie to changing his parts and becomes a funny and likable marijuana character, much to the dismay of Annie and the Dean. Chang ends up saving the day there. Good on you, Chang. We also get this really weird storyline with Jeff texting Britta's underage nephew in this really kind of creepy incest kink thingo. Yeah, it's weird. Number 47. The Science of Illusion. It's April Fool's Day, and the group get up to some wacky shenanigans. Shirley and Annie become detectives, each one trying to be the bad cop to prove a point. Abed takes on the role of police chief and influences them both to fulfill several police tropes. It's fantastic. Pierce becomes a level 6 laser lotus, and Jeff jumps at the opportunity to torment him. Britta attempts to pull a prank of her own, but Britta's it. The credits scene sees the first instance of Troy and Abed in the morning, one of my favorite ongoing bits. Number 46. Physical Education. Jeff is forced to wear shorts to play pool in his PE class, which he is reluctant to do because of his image. Abed appears to have a secret admirer, and the group convince him to make a move. Pierce gets in an all-time classic line: "There's nothing scarier than a 30-year-old Muslim virgin. One way or another, that story ends in an explosion." That story takes a twist, as it turns out there's a white Abed, and the group feels bad for Abed even though he doesn't care. I love the little nod they give to Alison Brie here, getting her involved with Abed doing his Don Draper from Mad Men impersonation. By the way, I think Mad Men will be the next show I rank, so be sure to subscribe for that. I'm not a massive fan of the conclusion to this story. When you really know who you are, changing for other people isn't such a big deal. I mean, that's just not a very good moral, is it? Don't we kind of usually encourage the opposite? Anyway, Jeff's final showdown with the PE teacher provides some good, wacky fun. Number 45. Debate 109. The group discovers that Abed has been making films about the study group, but get freaked out when they find out that he's been making them weeks before the events of the films unfold, eerily predicting the future. Pierce uses hypnotherapy to help Britta quit smoking, and Annie and Jeff compete in a debate against City College where they have to argue that man is evil. The debate has a lot of funny moments, and good old Wheelie over here is a fun one-off character. The storylines merge when Jeff and Annie kiss during the debate, completing one of Abed's film predictions that Shirley thought for sure would never happen. Number 44. Introduction to Film. Jeff convinces the study group to enroll in an easy class which simply requires them to seize the day. Carpe diem. Jeff struggles to do so, and we get some good gags from this professor. Abed creates a movie thanks to Britta's financial support, much to the disgust of Abed's dad, who I think is only in this episode in the entire series. We get one of the series' most iconic moments, which became a massive meme all over the internet. In a more serious moment, Abed's dad becoming emotional after watching Abed's film is really nice. It provides a look into the struggles neurodivergent people live with, and also the impact it has on their families. The resolution of his dad agreeing to enroll Abed in the film school is a beautiful conclusion. Number 43. Pilot. Where it all began. It's always interesting going back to this one on rewatches. We are introduced to Jeff, who asks Abed about Britta because he wants to hit on her. He fakes having a Spanish study group, and just like that, a racially diverse group of misfits get together. The show is obviously a lot more subdued and normal, but it does what we need it to do. We get the basic idea of the quirks of each character, and the formation of the study group. Probably the most interesting thing is how different Britta is. Most of the early characters are more or less the same throughout the series, with some minor character development added in, of course. Britta is the only one where you can tell the writers did a lot of shuffling for, which is a good decision. You'd be forgiven for thinking Community was just another sitcom upon first watch. It definitely takes some time to ramp up to what we know it eventually becomes. But as far as normal sitcom introductions go, this is pretty good. Number 42. Introduction to Finality. The season 3 finale has so much going on. Pierce and Shirley argue who gets to sign the form for Shirley sandwiches, which ends up going to court with Jeff helping Shirley and Pierce hiring Jeff's old lawyer frenemy Alan. The court case is good fun and gives us a nice winger character development speech. And he finally confronts Alan, who admits to being the one who ratted out Jeff in the first place. Also during all of this, Abed is having a bit of a mental breakdown and becomes evil Abed from the darkest timeline. This scene of him trying to cut off Jeff's arms in the middle of court with a cord that is far too short is absolute gold, and is easily one of my favourite recurring gags in the show. Of course, the highlight of the episode is the conclusion to the wonderful air conditioner repair school storyline. Troy embraces his destiny as the truest repairman and challenges Baldy to a one-on-one battle in the Sun Chamber. Troy of course wins with ease and even shows mercy to Baldy after he admits to murdering Vice Dean Laylon. Rest in peace, Goat. Every moment with these AC guys is fantastic. You guys are weird. This episode also has the funniest, most underrated, and underappreciated moment in the entire series. Jeff and Shirley are in the library plotting against Pierce when he suddenly reveals himself behind 2 fake cutouts of books. I mean, just think about how much time and effort would have had to go into all of this. You'd have to take a photo of the bookshelf, somehow get it printed on 2 massive bits of, cardboard, I suppose, then line himself up perfectly next to where Jeff and Shirley would be sitting ahead of time, then hold them perfectly still while being completely silent. And no one even cares. They just go on like this is not a big deal. Like it's a very simple thing to do. And this is just why I love this show. Number 41. Contemporary Impressionist. Jeff is on some new anti-anxiety medication, which inflates his already huge ego. Britta is rightfully worried and on a mission to support him by trying to get him off his meds. Abed loses control of a new service he finds where he can hire celebrity lookalikes, and Troy and the group make a deal to settle Abed's debt by dressing up as famous people for some rich arsehole's kid's birthday party. The whole thing is packed full of great bits. Britta as white Michael Jackson doesn't get anywhere near the love it deserves. The similarity is uncanny. Jeff, now on double the dose of his new meds, sees his ego balloon blow up and eventually burst when he doesn't win Most Handsome Young Man. He turns into the Hulk, which conveniently solves every problem. All of that stuff is terrific. Unfortunately, the episode is brought down a notch with this whole Chang's army storyline, which is one of the worst in the series. Oh well. Number 40. Advanced Gay. Pierce discovers that Hawthorne wipes have become iconic in the gay community and pounces on the opportunity to turn a profit. This leads to his father, who we all assumed was dead, just mathematically, showing up and scaring Pierce into aborting the pride wipes and gay dance he had planned. Jeff, who may or may not be acting under the influence of his own daddy issues, pushes Pierce to continue anyway, and then yells at Pierce's dad until he dies of a heart attack. It's a pretty fun storyline, which also helps us to sympathize with Pierce a little as we get a glimpse into how he was raised. Meanwhile, we get one of the absolute best scenes in the entire show as Troy is kidnapped and taken to the AC repair school for induction in front of an astronaut making paninis and Black Hitler. John Goodman absolutely steals every scene that he is in. Number 39. Horror fiction in 7 spooky steps. Britta is worried one of the group members is disturbed and homicidal after conducting an anonymous psychology test on them. She decides to test their reactions to a horror story, which just leads to each member telling their own horror story. I like how each story reflects the traits of each member. Abed's overly logical story in particular is great, and I definitely relate to his nitpicking when it comes to characters making obviously terrible decisions in movies. In the end, we find out Britta Britted the test by scanning them upside down, and in the end, Abed is the only one sane. Number 38. Intro to Political Science. Vice President Joe Biden is coming to Greendale, so they need to quickly elect a student president to meet him. Annie, of course, thinks that she is perfect for the role, and she probably is. But Jeff gets cynical about her idealism and runs against her and some other recurring minor characters. Abed notices the Secret Service around campus and forms a weird relationship with Blondie, but still has time for some fake TV coverage spiffs with Troy. You gotta ask the question, what's up with politics? I find this episode quite funny nowadays after everything that's happened with Biden. It feels kind of surreal, knowing what we know now. The episode is a nice parody of politics and pokes fun at the politicians, the voter, and the system. Number 37. Messianic Myths and Ancient Peoples. Here we have one of the more Abed meta-heavy episodes as he makes a movie about Jesus. But this is the movie, and he is Jesus. And also, it gets pretty confusing, but honestly, it's done well, it's clever, and it's funny. Watching Shirley confused as to how everyone around her seems to agree with something so nonsensical to her is a fun little twist on the Christian narrative. To be honest though, I wish they'd found a better conclusion to this story. Abed suddenly realizing he thinks his movie is trash is so anticlimactic. Meanwhile, Pierce tries making new friends with other old students, or hipsters, which has some funny moments as well, and contains a nice little message of not just assuming the cool kids are better kids, because the real cool kids are the friends that will bail you out of bad situations, literally and metaphorically. Number 36. Origins of Vampire Mythology. Britta reveals that she has an ex-boyfriend named Blade, who works as a carny. Blade and his carnival are in town, and Britta is worried about running back to him and spreading her legs. She entrusts Annie to help her survive the night without contacting him, while Troy and Abed try to watch Blade, the movie. Meanwhile, Jeff, overcome with jealousy, goes to check out this Blade fella and invites Shirley along to make it seem less weird. Also, there's this weird romance story with Pierce and Chang. Britta is incredibly annoying in this episode, and her scenes get pretty old pretty quickly. But the Dean randomly inviting himself into the evening and failing miserably to convince Troy to join the AC repair school is good fun. What annoys me most about this episode is the mobile phone use. This is a personal quirk of mine. I can't stand it when actors use phones unrealistically. The speed at which Annie and Britta have their texting conversation is so unrealistic, and it makes me want to punch a wall. Anyway, Jeff interrogating Blade is good fun and provides some more insight into Jeff's insecurities. I'm not super convinced by the conclusion here. Blade is irresistible because he can't feel shame, and we should all stop hating ourselves. It's alright, I guess, but it's a good episode overall. Number 35. Social Psychology. Britta meets Vaughn for the first time, and Jeff and Shirley bond over gossip and bad-mouthing other students. Pierce eavesdrops on others with his fancy ear-noculars. Annie gets herself involved with Professor Duncan's experiment and asks Troy and Abed to participate in the study. This is easily the best storyline of the episode, as Professor Duncan, Annie, and the other students involved in the experiment get the Uno reverse card played on them from Abed and go crazy as the man refuses to leave. Because of friendship. Aww. Number 34. Regional holiday music. If you told me before this episode the show would do a Glee episode with lots of singing, I'd be pretty skeptical. But hey, they actually did a great job. The songs are catchy, silly, funny, and well presented. The episode has a nice flow as each character is slowly seduced one by one by a targeted approach. Mr. Rad is an excellent eccentric psychopath who manages to be fun, cringy, and terrifying. Also, we get this scene with Alison Brie. Number 33. Biology 101. We kickstart Season 3 with a fantastic musical inside of Jeff's head, who is thrilled to have Pierce gone from the study group. Of course, that only lasts about 3 seconds. I'm back! Damn it! Jeff contrives a speech about how they've evolved beyond a study group and are now just friends, so it's not a big deal that Pierce isn't in their biology class. But then Jeff immediately gets kicked out of the class and Pierce gets his spot, driving Winger batshit crazy. Meanwhile, the Dean now has a goatee and a newfound commitment to improving the school. This episode has some incredible moments with Vice Dean Landor, and a really nice conclusion with Pierce and Jeff sticking up for each other in the end. Number 32. Advanced Introduction to Finality. Jeff is ready to graduate, but is worried about how his departure will affect the others, especially Abed. He rolls a die to gouge his response, but this leads to a break in reality and a story inside Jeff's head unfolding for the majority of the episode. I know this one gets a lot of mixed reviews among fans, but I personally really like it. The Darkest Timeline is good fun, and I think they executed the interactions between the normal characters and their evil counterparts really well. Nobody sleeps with Jeff. Not even me. Also, the paintball element is kinda cool. I don't care what you say. In the end, it turns out Jeff decided to catch the die and give a little winger speech about not going back to his old firm, but instead helping out the little guy. Kinda nice. And Pierce insists on graduating first. Number 31. Queer Studies and Advanced Waxing. The Dean is offered a spot on the school board if he openly comes out as gay. He's unsure. Jeff encourages it and Frankie discourages it. He does get a lot of appreciation from the gay community, which is nice. I love that he eventually comes out as a politician. What a great scene. Meanwhile, Annie and Chang have this weird but somewhat entertaining Karate Kid storyline, which has a great payoff as Chang actually nails his performance and the audience is visually captured. And Abed and Elroy care for a bird's nest instead of fixing the Wi-Fi. Number 30. History 101. The first episode without Dan Harmon and the beginning of the gas leak year. It kicks off in great fashion with Abed having a wild and entertaining daydream about what the new season might entail. When we snap back to reality, we see the group excited to start History of Ice Cream together, only to find out they can't and they have to participate in the Hunger Deans instead. Jeff is one credit away from graduating, but he wants to finish off his studies with the whole group, so he's going in hard to win the red balls. But Abed is being all Abed, and eventually, Jeff gives up his chance to win the final ball to help Abed out of his trance. The Hunger Deans really is good fun though. Number 29. Pascal's Triangle Revisited. Greendale host a tranny dance, and Britta and Slater both publicly confess their love for Jeff. Annie decides last minute not to follow Vaughn on his move interstate, and Jeff meets her outside the dance after leaving everybody hanging, and they end up kissing. Troy eats an insanely large cookie for the whole episode, which helps him understand why he and Abed maybe shouldn't live together. Community Season 1 was definitely more normal in terms of its storylines and whatnot, and this episode is a great example of how the show was once pretty cliche, but very entertaining nonetheless. Number 28. Ladders. Season 6. They did it! Thanks, Yahoo. Shirley is the latest member to disappear, and Frankie comes along to sort of replace her. She and Abed hit it off, but the rest of the group are skeptical. How much can you really improve Greendale before it stops being Greendale? The ease of which this secret bar is created is vintage Community and cracks me up every time. There was lumber. Frankie has a meltdown and becomes pretty likable. Good start to the final era. We also have this terrific post-credits scene, which plausibly explains Shirley's next life chapter. Shout out to Yvette Nicole Brown for her weight loss here too. She looks amazing. Number 27. Modern Espionage. Our final paintball episode in the series. Frankie attempts to implement her cleaner Greendale policy, which, of course, is strictly no paintball. But when a mysterious underground paintball game emerges, with hints of City College being involved, the old-time Greendale crew can't resist getting involved. They attempt to keep it on the down low, or at least a secret from Frankie, but of course, it inevitably fails. This scene with Jeff losing his mind and shooting this poor innocent man on crutches is incredible. We also get this terrific Gareth and Vicky comedy show featuring Vicky's not dead mother. It's not the best paintball episode, but it's a great episode for sure. Number 26. Mixology Certification. Plans for Troy's birthday party abruptly change when the group realizes that he is turning 21, not 20. Jeff and Britta get into a dick measuring contest and remain pretty obnoxious throughout the whole episode. Annie pretends to be someone else for the night. Pierce struggles to accept the fact that he may need help from people because he's in an electric wheelchair. Shirley attempts to cover up her former/alternate drunk self, and Abed has a fairly forgettable interaction with a man who is trying to flirt with him. Poor Troy just wants to have a couple of celebratory drinks for his birthday, but ends up babysitting the rest of the group. In all seriousness, this is one of the better episodes when it comes to character introspection and growth. Pierce eventually comes to admit that he needs help from other people. Shirley struggles to come to grip with her past self and current identity amongst a new friendship group. Annie has an identity crisis and questions what she's doing with her life. Jeff and Britta get humbled as it is revealed they don't really know all that much, and act like complete fools. Abed has another outcast moment, and Troy has the epiphany that not everybody older than him has their life all figured out, or knows more than he does. Regardless of how old we get, we're all kinda just winging it, acting like we know what we're doing, when really we're just trying our best, making mistakes along the way and taking things as they come. Number 25. Documentary filmmaking. Redux. Greendale receives a small budget to shoot a new commercial for the school. Abed, instead of being useful, creates a documentary about the process, and the dean slowly loses his sanity, along with most of the school. This is one of the dean's best episodes, which is no small feat, and also one of Jeff's. I absolutely love Dean Jeff. First of all, Joel McHale absolutely nails his Dean impression, which he is initially only doing so he can be so bad that he gets kicked off. But when that backfires and the Dean loves him, he becomes a bald man with bald friends. It is hilarious. Also, we get Louise Guzman, who I loved in IMDb. Number 24. Beginner Pottery. Jeff tries to get the group to enroll in beginner pottery for an easy blow-off class, but Pierce manages to convince Shirley, Troy, and Britta to join him in a week-long sailing course out in the school's car park. The pottery stuff is good. Jeff's jealousy over Rich is funny and gets a bit of an ongoing storyline throughout the season. It actually makes for a terrific ending to the episode as well, as we get to see the inner monologues of Rich, this seemingly perfect, super nice and talented guy who's actually dealing with some pretty dark mummy issues. But it's the sailing class that helps elevate this episode so high. It's absolutely hilarious. The seriousness to which the teacher and the students take this, as if they were actually out at sea, it's vintage Community humor. I crack up every single time Pierce falls overboard and gets abandoned, and then when he attempts to come back in his little wheelboat but gets stuck and the water pipe bursts to actually make him wet and fill up his little boat, comedy gold. Number 23. Basic Rocket Science. The group end up stuck inside a KFC rocket car. What a strange sentence. This space mishap adventure spoof is fantastic. I love Abed being mission control and the absolute absurdity of all the KFC references. Annie betraying the group and Greendale is a bit odd and happens from time to time throughout the series. The writers can't seem to make up their mind about how Annie feels about Greendale, but the ending of her being the one to drive their way to City College just in time is great. Number 22. Advanced Safety Features. Frankie and Elroy and some others plan a dance and talk about their feelings or whatever. Who cares? Rick is back. This is another terrific corpo-humanoid episode, only this time, instead of Subway, it's Honda. I absolutely love this storyline, with the Dean becoming a level 7 susceptible. Pure gold. Rick walks a fine line between being genuinely likable and a good partner for Britta, yet also an absolutely insane corporate sellout lunatic. He's great. Number 21. The First Chang Dynasty. The group run their plan to expose Chang and save the Dean. This Chang storyline can be hit and miss, and I know a lot of fans don't like it, but at least it ends with a bang. Well, it would've if Chang got his way anyway. Troy's storyline with the AC school here definitely helps kick things up a notch. The whole heist is good fun to watch, and there are some great jokes throughout. Number 20. Basic Intergluteal Numismatics. The Arse Crack Bandit. Wow. This episode is great. There's a very unique vibe to it all, thanks to the cinematography and general tone. Troy absolutely steals the show as he is traumatized after being a victim. And the episode carries a wonderful sense of intrigue as it gives off little clues as to who the ass-cracked bandit could be, but never actually reveals it. It's ridiculously silly and fun, and then, out of nowhere, Shirley shows up and tells us that Pierce is dead. Number 19. Basic Lupine Urology. An on-the-nose parody of Law and Order, Basic Lupine Urology is another fan favourite that many probably have a little higher on their favourites list. The episode centres on the mystery of the group's damaged yam and their biology grade. The detective and Law and Order tropes are done super well throughout, and Michael Kenneth Williams is at his very best. The interrogation of Todd by Annie, leading to his eventual confession, was amazing and would have made a fine ending for the episode. But the extra twists and turns work out really well, with Jeff finding a moral compass and Fat Neil eventually coming clean about his involvement to finally have sex with Vicky. I guess in the end, it really was all about biology. Number 18. Emotional Consequences of Broadcast Television. The series finale. The end of an era. The end to one of the greatest TV shows ever. I've seen this episode so many times now, and yet it still makes me emotional. I'm so glad they managed to send this series out the way they did. It's a hard thing to do, and somewhat unfortunately, fans are not very forgiving if you stuff up the ending to a show, regardless of how the show previously was. The group take turns imagining a theoretical season 7. There's a good amount of humour here, but really this episode is more about the emotions than laughs. Jeff's "You Changed My Life Forever" line is so perfect. Time to watch the series again. Also, props to Dan Harmon for finishing off with one of the best and most meta post-credit scenes. Number 17. Lawnmower maintenance and postnatal care. The Dean gets a VR system and goes crazy. That's it. That's the episode. Well, not really. Britta has this whole plot about how her loving parents have been financially supporting her behind her back, but it's a pretty forgettable B-plot. The VR storyline though is absolutely terrific. We also get Elroy for the first time in person, and he starts off his little cameo on the show strongly. I just really love the Dean VR storyline though. It's so good. Jesus wept. Number 16. Curriculum unavailable. 2 months after the Greendale 7 are expelled, Abed sees a psychiatrist with the rest of the group there as support. We get stacks of flashbacks in this one and some pretty great moments. I remember being really intrigued the first time I ever watched this episode when he says Greendale is a mental institution that they've all been in for the past few years. His reasoning is actually believable enough. This crazy school where all of these outrageous things happen, all centered on them. This scene of them going crazy whilst referencing some of their past shenanigans is absolutely gold, especially Gareth with his new, deep, manly voice. Bloody hilarious. Anyway, it's a fun ride while it lasts, but of course, they quickly come to their senses and realize what a load of crap it all is, and figure out that Chang is behind the whole thing. Number 15. Digital estate planning. Pierce and the group visit his father's warehouse and play a nice friendly video game with Gus Fring. This episode is great. Definitely their best alternate animation episode in my opinion. And how great is this gaming setup? I wonder how much that would have been worth in 2012. The 8-bit gaming animation is terrific and fun. The characters' avatars are perfect and there's stacks of great little jokes throughout. Abed going full Abed and marrying an NPC and creating thousands of babies he can control is simply fantastic. The episode also has some nice moments for Pierce, who has a couple of surprises to deal with. First, he has a half-white half-brother, then that he has to compete against him for his father's fortune, only to do the nice thing in the end and let Fring get the money. It's one of a few nice moments where we get to see the loving side of Pierce, and there's a great ending to the episode. Number 14. Digital exploration of interior design. One of my favorite things about Community is the invention of the corporo humanoid. I don't know if they actually invented it, but I've never seen anyone else do it, and I'm not willing to look it up, so I'm just gonna go with it. Subway the Human is so bloody fun. It's a pretty dark concept really, but it's just so ridiculous and so Community vibes that it absolutely works. And I love that they made Britta fall completely in love with this corporo humanoid subway man. Classic Britta. Meanwhile, there's the beginning of a two-part storyline involving Troy and Abed and their pillow fort, while Jeff and Annie have an okay storyline about Jeff earning the forgiveness of a dead girl who left him an angry letter in his locker he only just figured out about somehow, who ends up being very much a live man named Kim. Of course, every scene with Vice Dean Laydorn is terrific, which definitely helps bump this episode up a notch. Number 13. Pillows and blankets. The second part of the Pillows and Blankets storyline without any other B stories. This is one of only a few Troy and Abed fights we get throughout the series, and I believe it's the biggest one. For what it's worth, I kinda side with Troy on this one. The opportunity to get a world record is a big deal, and I find it strange that Abed is so against the idea. Anyway, this is a great mockumentary style episode with stacks of great moments. I really love the scene where Jeff goes all the way back to the office to collect the imaginary hats. Also, we get Elroy narrating, which is pretty cool. Number 12. Remedial Chaos Theory. I know a lot of fans have this as the number 1 episode, or at least top 3. I personally don't find it that good, but it is a great episode nonetheless. The group hang out at Troy and Abed's place and order pizza. Real pizza. Jeff, being the conniving son of a bitch that he is, decides to roll a die and make whoever's number it lands on get the pizza. A system in which he never has to. Which, of course, creates 6 different timelines, which we the audience get to explore. There are some great gags throughout, and it's undoubtedly a clever idea in which we get to see the group function under different dynamics depending on who leaves to go get the pizzas. This is also where we get the ongoing Darkest Timeline storyline, which is a bit hit or miss depending on where you stand in the fan base, but overall, I really like it. Number 11. Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Fat Neil joins the group for a game of Dungeons and Dragons to help with his mental health. A genuinely lovely concept. Pierce isn't invited because, well, he's Pierce. But he shows up anyway and chaos ensues. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, and the little that I know about it all comes from TV, so I'm not really sure how accurately the show abides by the rules, but they definitely made a great episode of TV. This is right up there in terms of episodes where we have the group hate on Pierce. He's such a bloody dick in this one, but it's incredibly entertaining and pays off really nicely as Neil sort of thanks Pierce at the end, commenting that it was the most fun he's ever had playing D&D. Number 10. Conspiracy Theories and Interior Design. Jeff gets busted trying to get a free credit from the made-up class Introduction to Conspiracies, but when Annie and the Dean get involved, things take a few twists and turns. Many twists and turns. Professor Professorson is incredible, and I love the Dean's performance here. He absolutely loses his mind by the end of it all. All of the fake shootings are so dramatic and fun to watch, and our old friend Mr. Policeman is back too with a nice little cameo. Also, Troy and Abed build a sweet-ass blanket fort. Number 9. Wedding Videography. This is the episode where Garrett marries his cousin. It's the best episode of season 6 and a real credit to the cast and crew for being able to get an episode into the top 10 this late into the series run. I love how this lady puts the group in their place and attempts to humble them, only for the group to become even more self-centered as they attempt to win everyone over and save the day. This is undoubtedly Elroy's best episode as well. Now there's a man who knows how to marry his cousin. Credit to Chang for genuinely saving the day. Number 8. Contemporary American Poultry. I have never seen the mafia movies that this episode is parodying. Hell, I've never even seen The Godfather. But if I can still love this episode as much as I do with that in mind, I can only imagine how good this episode is for those who have seen them. This episode absolutely slaps. The narration from Abed is top class, the chicken tenders look delicious, and the story is engaging from start to finish. I love the way they flip the group's usual dynamic on its head. Watching Jeff slowly lose his power and authority to Abed makes for a super unique and interesting dynamic amongst the group. We also get some great insight into Jeff and Abed as characters in this episode, as they both have to do some soul searching, and by the end of the episode, they've both had an epiphany about themselves. Great episode. Number 7. Cooperative Calligraphy. We're doing a bottle episode. This is another one that just makes me laugh so much, especially on that first viewing. The fact that something so small, a missing pen, could result in the group dividing everyone by sex and stripping to their undies behind a side turntable is incredible. We get many arguments within the study group over the course of Community, but I don't think many compare to the intensity and fun of this one. I also love how we get a callback to this episode a couple of times throughout the series, shining a new light on the ridiculous shenanigans of the study group through the eyes of the background characters. The ending, where they agree that a ghost took the pen, only to then reveal that it was Annie's boobs all along, is terrific. Number 6. Cooperative Polygraphy. This is the first episode we get after Pierce's death, and it was always going to be a telling moment for the show to see how it could and would handle the first departure of one of the 7 members of the study group. It was a big deal for the show, and for the fans, who had come to love the show and the study group on a personal level. I've heard the stories about Chevy Chase and the problems he and other members of the cast and crew had, but Pierce was a fantastic and vital character to the dynamic of the show. Now, we could talk forever about the impact his departure, and later Troy and Shirley leaving had on the later seasons of the show, and I probably will at some stage. Let me know in the comments if you like a comprehensive ranking and reviews of every Community season. But for now, let's just focus on this episode. This is honestly, probably the funniest episode of the entire series, especially on your first viewing. This episode is guaranteed to have you snorting and crying with laughter. The group enter the study room after attending Pierce's funeral. It's a hollow mood, but that doesn't last long. Walton Goggins guest stars as Mr. Stone, Pierce's executor who leads an investigation into Pierce's death with the assistance of a lie detector. The questions, answers, fights, and whatnot that arise from these questions are just terrific. It really is non-stop entertainment here. But then, we get the final round of questions, and the group braces themselves for more chaos, only to be met with something different, something unexpected. Pierce shows kindness. More than that even, he shows respect and love. Pierce was the perfect grey area character. We could genuinely and rightfully hate him and his actions at times. Yet, throughout the series, he has also had these moments where he really is a good guy, and we feel pity or respect or even love for the man. I absolutely love that they gave Pierce these final touching moments with each character. and I absolutely love how they managed to balance these heartfelt, serious moments with classic community college humor. My god, these sperm cylinders are hilarious. Each and every delivery is just terrific. And just when you think this episode has had it all, it throws a curveball right at you. Troy Barnes, our beloved Troy, accepts the condition to sail around the world. Cool. Cool. Number 5. Modern Warfare. Up to this point, Community had been another enjoyable sitcom. It was good, sure. The characters were wacky, we had some fun and slightly outlandish storylines, and some good old-fashioned meta humor. But all in all, it was just another sitcom without too much separating it from the rest. But then this episode comes along and just changes everything completely. I absolutely love the way they set this thing up. The fact that it starts out as just another normal day at Greendale, Jeff takes a nap in his car, and then wakes up to complete and utter chaos. Things escalate so quickly, yet it feels so natural. It's a classic zombie movie trope, possibly 28 days later. One reason I think it works so well is that we follow Jeff's point of view. That initial confusion and bewilderment as he tries to comprehend what is going on. I love the way every other character but Jeff has completely changed since we saw them last. They're in the paintball game. They are the paintball game. Life did not, does not, and will not exist outside of that paintball game until there is a winner. And then we find out all of this craziness is just for priority registration. Terrific. Just terrific. This episode was a catalyst for all Community episodes to come. It doesn't mean every episode to come has to be completely insane and unrealistic, but they could be. The groundwork was set, and Community now had that extra little something to make it stand head and shoulders above every other sitcom. Number 4. A Fistful of Paintballs. Our first return to paintball after the success of Season 1's Modern Warfare. This episode is just so much fun. Stacks of movie references and bits, great action, lots of laughs, and Sawyer from Lost. It's Community at its very best. And it's really quite amazing that an episode that is so ridiculous and over the top manages to be grounded on a very real and serious storyline for the group. What to do with Pierce. The introduction of the cards alongside our study group members' first introduction in the episode is an intriguing mystery that manages to build and then finally pay off towards the end of the episode, as it is revealed that only Annie wants Pierce to remain a part of the group. It's a real testament to the show that they can juggle so many different elements in one, or kind of two, episodes, and absolutely nail it. Number 3. For a Few Paintballs More. In other words, we've moved away from Western and are doing more of a Star Wars. They did such a great job of making these two episodes connected, yet still distinctly different. This episode manages to edge out its brother, partly due to the amount of amazing scenes, and partly because my self-diagnosed autism couldn't have these two episodes in the list in any other order than chronological. No, but in all seriousness, this episode probably is just slightly better than part 1. The intensity and involvement of City College participants really amps things up a notch, and we get some of the best action sequences of the whole series. Chang detonating a suicide paint vest is amazing, as is Troy using his plumbing skills to connect the paint to the school's fire sprinklers. And then we get this amazing scene with Jeff and the Dean too. Just so good. I love how they finish this episode off by giving a satisfying ending to the Pierce arc. His last minute brilliance to steal the win from City College, and then his heart to donate the money to Greendale, whilst helping with the good graces of the study group is just super. Well done, community. Number 2. App development and condiments. Yeah, that's right, Black Mirror. Community did it first. This episode sees another all-in school-wide chaotic event take place as the study group are introduced to a new app, Meow Meow Beans. This app allows users to rate each other 1 to 5 stars. A pretty simple premise, which of course leads to the complete destruction of the school and a complete overhaul of the social and group classes. The way each group of numbers get characterized and stereotyped is absolutely gold. I love the way characters interact in this episode. Unlike the other school-wide crazy episodes, there's less urgency and action because it's less about shooting people or being the last man standing. It gives characters more time to interact and build in their interactions. But in all seriousness, this episode has some of the best social commentary on modern day societies, highlighting very real issues of class, how we treat technology, and how we treat each other. Also, Jeff's comedy show is undoubtedly one of the show's greatest moments. How about damn apples? Number 1. Geothermal escapism. My god, do I love this episode. And just look at the run Season 5 had here. 3 of the absolute best episodes running back to back to back. Unbelievably impressive. This is the last episode with our beloved Troy Barnes, and in many ways, the show would never be the same again. So I'm glad they managed to send Daniel Glover off in style with this epic episode. Abed announces a school-wide game of The Floor is Lava, offering up his copy of Space Clone worth $50,000 for the winner. And so, we get yet another all-in school-wide chaotic competition. They'd done quite a few of these at this point, so there was always the risk that they would run a little stale, but I think they did well to stay away from paintball and do The Floor is Lava instead. A real classic game from our childhood that seems to be a universally known and loved game. It also opened the door to countless creative freedoms for the writers, a whole new ether for characters to interact in. I always marvel at the language that naturally flows when the school is thrown into chaos by some craze. Community are the undisputed kings of doing this, and in my opinion, it is the reason for being the hit that it is. Words like centipeding and locker boys are thrown around like they're the most casually known things in life. The way things like Shirley Island pop up, this back and forth between Jeff and Britta, alliances are formed, betrayals made, and of course just constant good quality community jokes. To finish the episode off, we have the return of LeVar Burton and a cheeky nod to Glover's new life as Childish Gambino. It still blows my mind to this day that the actor for Troy is really some international superstar rapper. It's an emotional send-off. It's the end of an era and the start of a new one. It's my favorite episode of Community. Community really is a show like no other, with outlandish plots, meta humor, recurring gags, and likable characters who have just the right amount of flaws. But at the heart of the show is a very real theme of growing up. Community at its core is a show about lost people trying to find a place where they belong, trying to find a purpose in life, and trying to find themselves. And what I love about Community is it shows that that is the reality for people of all ages. Sure, it's probably something most common for those straight out of school or entering adulthood, but it's also for people going through relationship troubles, career turmoil, or people who are just old. And what the show tells us is that it's okay not to have the answers. It's okay to make mistakes, to change directions. Just keep showing up every day, keep working towards something, and keep being there for each other. Well guys, that's it from me. Thank you so much for watching. As I said earlier, I have more plans to do these ranked lists in the future, probably starting with Mad Men next. I also have plans to do Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, Game of Thrones, and many, many more. So please hit subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.